Hey everyone, I'm in New York City still. I'm here, of course, overseeing what's happening with the Trump trial and reporting on that for Fox News. But I'm also talking to people, and New York is changing. It's not the same. So let me put it to you this way, politically. When I first came to New York City covering Trump's trial in the very, very beginning, it was crazy. I had people blowing marijuana in my face, banging drums on me, being very threatening as far as like their body language and their language in general. It's different now. People are waking up in a way. They're seeing what the Democrats have done over the last 4 years. And I'm not saying that there's people that are like jumping on to President Trump's bandwagon. Some of them are actually, but I'm saying that they are seeing the Democrats for what they really are, a failed political party that has lied to them. You know, even the Republican Party is different. The Democrat Party is different now than our parents had in the past. It's not the same Republican and Democrat Party. That past is now dead. And I don't believe there's any going back. On the left, Democrats are no longer the party of the little guy or the civil rights movement, the ones that the union supported. In fact, they're more pro-censorship. They are elitists. They're the Hillary Clintons saying that half of America is a bag of deplorables. That's how they look at the middle class. They look at the majority of Americans as losers that they have to guide to the polls. They have to make you vote their way because they're the ones that know, the Democrats, this is what they believe. They believe that they know what is best for America and for you and your family. And they've made it so obvious. And they've gone to such extremes, both on the political level as well as the very local civil level. We could see it with the rise in crime across the country, the border issues, education systems in America. We can see how the Democratic Party has basically and fundamentally broken our system. And Americans are sick and tired of that. They are seeing it and understanding that this is what they do not want. It doesn't matter about the color of skin or where they came from or what the past was like for them, whether they're rich or poor. All of you see the truth. You see the reality of what is happening in our country. And you're frankly, like me, sick of it. I know you must be. I know you must be because I talk to you every day. Every day that I'm on the road, I talk to you. I talk to you in grocery stores. I meet you on the streets. I speak to you in airports. And everyone says the same thing. They're tired the direction our country is in. They're disgusted by the values that the Democrats hold so dear. I mean, it's actually hurting businesses now. I mean, that's why you're seeing people and corporations move away from the woke, right? Where we felt like it was the woke generations, right? Or the woke ideology or these radical ideologies, because Americans are not buying into it anymore. Americans of all ages and backgrounds are looking for an alternative. And many are finding a home in Donald Trump and the Republican Party. And I think the reason that most of you are doing that is because you realize that President Trump and what he is espousing is basically freedom. It's the freedom to make your own choices. It's the freedom to be able to give your family more than what you could have ever imagined having for yourself when you were younger. Being able to build a business, being able to rely on your family's ingenuity and the ingenuity of companies, American companies, to do incredible things and change the world. It's the opportunity to make your community stronger instead of weaker. the opportunity to allow your kids to go to schools that are going to educate them but not indoctrinate them, to give you the choice to make those choices. That's all about freedom. Thousands of Black, white, Hispanic, Jewish, Asian Americans have now come out with red hats on to support a former candidate that is currently being persecuted by a corrupt district attorney that is basically a tool of the Democratic Party. They have weaponized our courts. They have weaponized our bureaucracies. These extreme radical Democrats have taken our nation in a direction we no longer want to be a part of. And the majority of Americans are seeing it. They are seeing it and they are reacting to it. Here is one former Democrat attendee explaining why she is supporting Trump. You got to listen to this.
I was a lifelong Democrat. I voted Democrat. You Puerto Rican, you're Spanish, you live in the hood, you're supposed to vote Democrat. But once you start waking up to, the biggest mistake they did was mess with Trump, because that woke up a lot of people. And what they're doing now is waking up even more people. So you would never guess all these people here for Trump. You would never see it before. You couldn't even see that in 2020. You wouldn't see it, but now you're seeing it. The worst thing they did is do what they do. What they doing to him it's just making it easier for us to go on the other side. What they doing to us, the American people and the working class, you making us go somewhere else. You losing votes. I would never, ever, ever, ever vote for them ever again. Not locally, no state, federal, nothing.
She's right. And that was an attendee in the Bronx at the rally for President Trump, where you see everyone, didn't matter who, here in New York City, saying, you know what? Wait a minute. This guy is us. This is how we are treated all the time. And we're sick of it. We're not victims, but they want us to be. The Democrats want us to be. They would love it if you were all victims and begging them for money. That's what they want. The Democrats have this weird, twisted ideology that they absolutely believe in. They wish America was just filled with people that needed them so that they could have full control over the populace. Doesn't it make you wonder why the border is wide open? Does it make you wonder why they're allowing so many people into this country? You have to think about what is going on here, but it's so obvious. It's like right in our face, right in our face. Polling from CNN actually shows the same thing. Let me read this to you. Polling this year shows Trump may even do better among Hispanic and Black voters than he did 4 years ago. Surveys taken since the beginning of April, listen to this, show Biden's margin among these voters down double digits compared to surveys from the same point in 2020. Mark my words. This will be a major theme in this presidential cycle. Major. As a Hispanic on my mom's side, I see it. I talk to people all the time. I speak Spanish fluently. I know, even when I talk to recent Americans, people that just got their citizenship from Spanish-speaking countries, they're like, there is no way I'm going to pick the left anymore, the Democrats. They see Biden and this administration as just an extension of the corruption that they saw in the countries that they left. Biden and his administration run this country from the lowest levels to the highest levels like a banana republic. And believe me, people from those regions of the world where their governments are full of corruption, they see that and they know it. They see it and they know it. On today's show, I have my good friend and patriot, Sara Parker. We're going to dive into these issues. We're going to talk about them in detail. Folks, you do not want to miss this interview. But first, My Pillow. Folks, Mike Lindell has a great American company. I love it. I believe in it. My Pillow. When he first launched the company, though, it was just about one thing. It was about pillows. But with the dedication of his team, they've expanded their offerings to include hundreds of products. You know what I'm talking about. Dog beds, mattress toppers, towel sets, more and more and more, even slippers. And they're hosting a $25 extravaganza, and it's going on now. Listen to this. Here's the current offer. Use promo code Carter, CARTER at mypillow.com to get the sale price and free shipping on your order over $75. Let me reiterate some of these products again. You can get 2-pack My Pillows, My Pillow sandals, luxurious 6-piece towel sets, brand new 4-pack dish towels, all for $25 only. Small dog beds, beach towels. Other savings with promo code Carter, CARTER, is the Giza Dream bed sheets. Listen to this, queen size only, $59.98 with the promo code, and 60% off my slippers. Go to mypillow.com or call 1-800-685-7221 to get in on the $25 extravaganza today. Be sure to use code Carter to get the sale price and free shipping on your order over $75. Call 800-685-7221 or go to mypillow.com, promo code Carter. Again, mypillow.com, promo code Carter. Happy to have with me Sara Parker. Sara is the president and founder of the Center for Urban Renewal and Education. She is a syndicated columnist, an author, and social policy consultant, and a true patriot that has worked hard at exposing the, I guess, Sara, I like to say it, the evil underbelly of the left and how they have continued to radicalize and attempt to radicalize young Americans through the education system. Thank you so much for being on the show.
You're so welcome, Sara. It's good to be with you. It's been a long time coming. And guess what? The young people are leaving them. The truth is out.
Well,
Thank God
this
for
is
the internet.
Thank God. And Sara, this is so important because I'm so glad you brought that up. When we look at what the exposure of the left, you know, how they have worked, and I said the underbelly because I really do mean that. We have seen it in our education system. We've seen it pass through not only our elementary school level, middle school, high school, but on to college and then into the bureaucracy. And I feel that our bureaucracies, and we're going to go right into President Trump, you know, were easily weaponized by the left because they had the people in there that they needed. It took decades, but they got what they wanted in government. And that is kind of a terrifying idea to think that it had, and I'd heard this in the past, and I didn't even believe it until I saw it transpire in 2016, 17, 18, and then now for the last, you know, I would say for the last 8 years with regard to targeting President Trump. Talk a little bit about that.
People woke up to the reality that they had lost our country, that we were far from our founding vision. It's like one of our donors, I run a nonprofit here in Washington, D.C., and one of my donors said, I just went to work every day, worked hard, taught my children to behave themselves, took them to church on Sunday morning, to school on Monday morning, and then woke up one day and said, what happened to my country? And he became then one of the strongest Trumpites, if you will. We call them trumpets here, or MAGAites, as Hillary likes to call us, and or he will even say he's one of the deplorables as a result, because that is the discussion that we're going to have today, Sara. You're absolutely right. The social engineering that started basically in the 60s. I mean, we can go back to when they came up with this social security program in the 30s, but let's just go in the 60s to when the pagan progressives began to really change our society, change everything about how America had built herself and was on its journey toward a more perfect union. First, they scrubbed our schools from any reference to God. By the mid-60s, we had a feminist movement that destroyed marriage and family. By the end of the year, the 60s, we had this war on poverty that said, don't worry about any natural consequences. We now have safety nets. And we have seen the just constant from the left. The reason the Black community got hit so hard and we're first getting hit hard is because it was a very vulnerable community coming out of slavery, out of Jim Crow, going in the civil rights movement that said remove governmental barriers so we can live free. And instead we started seeing all this forced integration coming out of a desegregation movement. The next thing you know, we have Roe v. Wade as national law 5 years after King's death. And then we're faced with affirmative action in the early 70s. So that's what has developed this whole world of I guess we could call it a cultural war that we're dealing with today. You know, when President Biden keeps saying that this election is about the soul of America, that's the only coherent thing he can say that is absolutely correct. It's about the soul of America, and it's incredibly important that what you're pointing to over this last 8 years, so people who woke up and said, what happened to my country, that they are active in this coming year and election, because we will lose the America that our founders had intended if we don't stop them now.
I absolutely understand where you're going with that. And I think that's what is so terrifying. What is so uplifting is the fact that so many young people are starting to see it. Just like you said, we just saw President Trump host the most incredible, diverse rally in South Bronx here in New York. I'm in New York right now for the week, and then I'm heading over to Central America right after this.
Nice.
But the mainstream media just couldn't simply spin it against him. They could not spin it against him because here you have people, and I'm walking down the street, Star. I'm talking to people yesterday. I walk up, it doesn't matter what color, where they're from, if they have an accent, if they don't, I'm just going up to them like, hey, how do you guys feel? You hear about Trump?
Sure.
Yeah. Do you hear about Trump? And I talked yesterday, this one gal, she's Dominican, and she said with her accent, she said, I came here, I came here legally, and I want President Trump back in office. I want him to fix this country. I do not like the direction this country is going in. I don't feel safe. Do you think that the left has really lost touch with, I mean, they can't utilize those tools anymore.
I don't think they lost touch. They are pagan. They are progressives. But what they're losing are the people themselves. See, when you go into some of these foreign countries to where socialism or Marxism has taken a hold, or communism, the people lose their will to fight. In America, we've never lost that. In fact, you see it even in ethnic communities. They're always protesting something. They're looking for freedom in a lot of different places. And what has happened now is freedom and ideals of freedom have captured themselves in one political party. So we've exposed what the left is doing. Even getting to the rally you just mentioned. When I first showed up on the scene after a very aggressive life, you know my story, criminal activity, drug activity, sexual activity. I mean, I believed all the lies of the left, abortion activity, welfare activity, then got born again and changed everything about my life. So when I first showed up as a Christian conservative in the movement, there were very few of us that would say that out loud. And the death threats were starting then. So imagine now to see this Calvary of all these people to look out at a rally like that and say, okay, it actually worked. My colleague constantly tells me I'm breaking the Nesbitt rule. John Nesbitt had coined the phrase for our big gurus, if you will, the business gurus, don't be too far ahead of the parade. No one will know you're in it. And I've been ahead of the parade, I suppose, for a long time. So to see that kind of diversity that you just mentioned being right there on the streets is very, very peaceful for me. Okay, let's just say you get to the point where you say, okay, all of the ideals that we've been trying to preserve, whether it's from the Proverbs to Edwin Burke, we are now realizing that most Americans are wanting to be free people, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to stay that way.
You talk about freedom, and this is something that I say consistently. We should want to fight for freedom. We should espouse that belief that is part of what makes us human, that constant struggle to be free. And so many young people have been lied to so much so that they're willing to let that freedom go. They're willing.
I'm gonna push back a little bit, because I think that they didn't realize that they were losing their freedoms until we started seeing. Pandemic really opened a lot of eyes to see what government will do. When you think about most people in America in our little spaces, in our little circles, we do think we're free, and you notice a little increases in.
But how
taxes.
did they get? But how did they buy into the lie? See, this is where I think we have to be very aware. Like you and I said before we came on, we cannot underestimate the power of the enemy, right?
Well,
the power of the opposition.
I'm not going to do that at all.
They were able, and they have been able to push this progressive radicalism, these lies that, that we are all victims, or that we can't do it on our own, or that we need the government to basically babysit us, or we're going to lose our way. And trust the government more than you trust your church or your family or the people that actually love you. How did we get to that point?
We got to that point when we thought that we needed a government-run educational system. One size doesn't fit all. We know that as women. We know that 2s and 22s are not going to get in the same dress. Okay, you can pretend all day. One size fits all in education. And notice how it's the left that constantly forces kids in the same classroom and won't let them escape if you don't have any resources to get out. But we're winning that battle. That's one of the reasons that we should be excited while we're, it's kind of like driving a stick shift car. You want to press on the gas at the same time you're lifting the clutch. We don't want to get comfortable where we are, but we can be encouraged where we are, because what happened to the baby boom generation that I grew up in, we were forced all into one classroom situation. All the media was controlled by the left-wing interest, unionized interest. And now it's breaking free of that. So even though, my daughter's generation had a little more flexibility, my grandchildren's generation are looking for freedom. They're starting to notice that something has gone terribly wrong. I was just at a meeting last night, a Black church in North Carolina, and some of the questions from the young people were things like, why are we forced to pay into Social Security system? Why can't we have our own personal retirement account? They wanted deeper answers to some of the things that they've been told all their lives that they shouldn't even desire. So the left, look at what they do. First of all, they convince you that your children are worthless. So they force this idea of abortion on everybody. How do you know?
Which, by the way, mention in minority communities, how many children never even had the right to, never even were given the right to exist.
20 million.
Exactly.
More
20 million
Black babies dead since Roe v. Wade than were alive during the 60s when we were in a civil rights movement. It's a real tragedy. And you're absolutely right, Sarah. They have targeted this particular community of people. I bought the lie as well. But when you start thinking about the reality that now our young people are starting to think about, Dobbs was a great decision because now everybody's talking about what abortion is. And what I try to convince people is every time you hear the word abortion, just replace it with the word slavery. It's one of the reasons the left doesn't use the word abortion, because they know that crime against humanity is so similar to what they were doing to 4 million former slaves in the country, because that was the Democrat Party that kept slavery going for the first 89 years of our existence. So when they first convince you that you shouldn't even have these children, the next thing you know, we're in this situation where they control what those children learn. And it's one of the reasons the left is constantly, K through 12 is not enough for them to enslave our children and indoctrinate them. They've been constantly trying to get to the younger children, forcing that worldview into them. But the challenge is most of our young children are raised in marital households. So the marital people still have options to get babysitter locals, stay home with their children. But if you listen to the rhetoric and look at some of the bills that they try to pass, they want this universal child care. And it's not about providing child care, because most people with children have child care. The majority of Americans that want childcare have childcare, but what they want is to indoctrinate them. But that model is done. We've not only had good decision on the courts on abortion so that we can discover whether the answer to your prayer is in a woman's womb today. How many visionaries have been destroyed through abortion? So we can have these discussions now about the humanity. But when we start talking about K through 12, we've had incredible Supreme Court decisions over the last 10 years. 2 of them, one out of Montana with the Espinosa decision, and then this recent one out of Maine. It's over. The party for the left is over. We're just in the noisy part of it, because that now is a state debate as well. It's no longer a federalized one-size-fits-all government educational apparatus.
Talk briefly about the Espinosa decision and the state of Maine decision so that the listeners understand what you're talking about.
Okay, well, what happened, now I better go into my brain because it's been a few years, but what happened in Montana is they have, they had school choice, but you had to, they had a scholarship, like a scholarship program. If you win the scholarship, you could go to any school you want to. So Miss Espinosa won the scholarship and she took her children to Christian schools. And they said, oh, no, you can't take them to those schools. You could take them to any other kind of school, but not to those schools. So she sued them. And then next thing you know, she won. So they said, well, then we're going to get rid of the scholarship. So now here comes, I think it was Institute for Justice was one of the lead plaintiffs. They said, no, we're going to the Supreme Court. You can't just get rid of the whole program just to keep these scholarships from going to Christian schools. So that was that decision. And all the lawyers out there that are going to say,
it's
no,
amazing.
That wasn't exact detail. You get the picture. So now that gave us at least enough clarity to say that it is not unconstitutional for money to follow children to religious schools. But it didn't go far enough. And so the main decision went further in that the main decision was that they already provide school choice. Maine has they don't have public schools in every area. It sounds like it's very rural in a whole lot of places in Maine. So they don't have public school at all. So every student gets to go to any school they want to, except the Christian schools. So that decision was just 2 years ago. And that's why you're starting to see all this activity to have discussions about whether we're going to do scholarships, whether we're going to do vouchers in the states. These are local matters. So local people should decide what's the best thing for themselves. But the real answer that parents are looking for is they want control over their children's education. So that means that they should be able, we want choice. So you should be able to go to whatever school you want to, anytime you want to, and the money should follow you. If we as a society have decided that we're going to share resources, educational dollars, we're going to pool our resources to educate other people's children, then you have to ask the question, why should the government be in the education business to decide where that child goes to school? I'm not 100% against the concept of pooling our resources through our property taxes to pay for other people's children to go to school. But no more than with food stamps do we want the government owning the grocery store. We should not want the government owning the school.
That is such a great argument. That's such a great way to lay it out because it's very understandable. Look, November 2024, it's around the corner. It's can't get here fast enough for me. I'm telling you, but what is Donald Trump
to win?
Right, I know. I know.
We need our influencers.
We do, and we're seeing a growing number of Hispanics, Blacks, Asians, doesn't matter, Americans of all colors, of all backgrounds, saying, "Whoa, wait a minute, we don't want this insanity that we've seen under Biden," and they're moving towards President Trump. Many of them are already there. What is President Trump doing right with minority voters? And where can he improve?
He's telling the truth. One of the things that we can discover, if you will, particularly in the Black community, is a loyalty. There's a loyalty to ideas. We unfortunately bought the ideas of collectivism, and it's encounter to individualism. And so now we have to break free from the collectivism of the grandparents, who went through the civil rights movement and or Jim Crow. So when you hear President Trump speak, do you remember the book that Mike McCoby did years ago called The Productive Narcissist? Trump didn't make the book, but there are characteristics of a narcissist that are positive, and he points them out in a particular book. In fact, Steve Jobs made that book, as an example of what happens when you have someone that it's just not enough, and they just can't stand with the picture that they're seeing, and they want to change things. Now, you can try to do it from the positive, or you can do it from a very aggressive standpoint. And so there's an attraction there to say, you're telling us the truth. We know something's gone terribly wrong. We don't know exactly what it is, but we're glad that you're at least willing to fix it. One prime example is that when President Trump ran the last time, he said he wanted to fix the inner cities. He didn't know what that meant. He didn't know why he said it, but he wanted to do it. He knew that there's something wrong with not being able to go out in the streets in a big city. There's something that has.
He's right.
Now, absolutely. And in fact, one of the things that we argue here at CURE is that we should bust these big cities up. When you get to the place where it's unmanageable, where you have 800,000 kids in one school district, really? Come on. This is foolishness. The reason that suburbs work is not because the people are white. They work because it's small, it's manageable. You know the mayor, you see him at the ball game, and therefore there's accountability there. But anyway, so he said he wanted to fix the inner cities. And so when he won, even though he didn't win the majority of Black vote at that time, he still came to Washington and wanted to fix the inner cities. I was on the task force to help discover different ideas of things that we could do to help fix this environment. And one of the most brilliant things that happened was that Tim Scott and Cory Booker put into the tax bill the Opportunity Zone Initiative. We had already, Trump and his administration had already identified exactly where the broken zip codes are, something that George Bush wouldn't do when he did No Child Left Behind. We knew which schools were broken, but it takes a lot of political energy to say, I'm only going to target the broken. And especially you're looking at 20,000 high schools, 2,000 broken, and Black caucus who hates him and hates all of us. He didn't want to do it. Well, Trump didn't care. So when he found out that there were 8,700 broken zip codes in the country, they developed out a strategy to go fix them. And it's called an Opportunity Zone Initiative. It's in the current tax bill, which Biden is promising to get rid of if he were put back in power. So what it did was it allowed the private sector to put their capital into these communities. That's why you're starting to see them revitalize the area.
Why would the Democrats want to take that away? And I mean, I think I have the answer, but in your opinion,
they like slaves. Right. They don't. They're a bunch of commies, and you know it. They don't want people free. When an individual's free, they're happy. They get to do things, and they don't need you. They don't need your nanny state, and that means that you have to give up your yacht because you have built all of your life in the nanny state. There are so many people collecting benefit from this. We can go after the poor if we want to, but when you think about the lobby world and the energy of the bureaucracy, I mean, we know that 24 million, 25 million people work actually for government. But when you start thinking about what that looks like and how many of them we actually need to be doing the work of government, it's big business. This is big, huge business. $7 trillion is big business.
Right.
So you know the answer to that.
It's huge.
They like people.
I do.
Here's what's happening. You can't control, as you pointed out, that desire in all of us to be free, that desire. And what America offers, the brilliance of America, the exception to the rule, that's why we're exceptional, is that we offer the opportunity for anyone everywhere to be able to seek that and that desire and fulfill their purpose in life. So that, but the left doesn't.
But it requires, Star, waking up and realizing that you had been manipulated. It's like having a light bulb moment, right? You think everything's fine until you see the other side, and then you're like, wait, what the hell? How was I believing that bullshit for so long?
I don't know, and I don't even know that we should expect that to happen. I think that what we don't want to do, remember I talked about the loyalty, especially in the Black community. What we don't want to do is accuse their mama and grandmama of making wrong decisions. No, we're looking at the future.
But that was a different time. Now
it's a continuum. It's a different time, and we made a lot of big mistakes. So you don't want, what we want to do is continue the discussion into the future and talk about freedom. Because if we start looking at why were you so asleep for so long? You're really talking about the grandma. In fact, this is one of the reasons that we haven't been able to move, in particular, the Black community into new ideas for how to, revive their communities and revolutionize our lives, is because you have this legacy, you have this history. And in fact, what's his name? Viktor Frankl wrote it best in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, when he talked about this logo, the philosophy of therapy. But what he said is the problem that we have, if you're looking at generational, by the fourth generation, it's like metastasized if you haven't dealt with the core issues from the beginning. So now look at a community that moved from slavery. They tell their kids, you don't ever go. I mean, my mom was naming children so just in case they ever came to get you again so we can come find you. By the third generation, it becomes anger. By the fourth generation, they're just ready to give up on all of America. And that's where we are as a society. So we want to make sure that we're talking ideas of freedom and keep pushing ideas of how wonderful the country is to allow for those opportunities. We had some.
And that's. How do we tangibly do that? How does a new administration tangibly do that? I mean, I think that part of it is the investments that we're seeing, what you just talked about, of taking those investments from private industry, putting them into the inner city, giving opportunities to those most afflicted and saying, look, we care about you. We care about ourselves.
No. See that? No, honey. The nanny state philosophy that people can't take care of themselves. What that Opportunity Zone Initiative was not that.
No. What I'm saying we care because we give you that opportunity, not because we want to babysit you.
It's the opposite.
So we say,
it was a tax incentive. The way that you have tax incentive for, let's think of where we have tax incentives. Well, per child tax credit. If you have a child and you have another child, you get okay. So that it was a tax incentive. No, it was no force whatsoever. It's very different from what the model that the left wants to do. And even we hear sometimes from people on the right that want to do enterprise zones. No, this was, instead of putting your capital in China, put it in an inner city and you get a tax break.
So business. Yes. So in small businesses.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I believe.
And it was non-discriminatory. Anyone, you just had to leave the capital in there for 7 years to get it right. 10 years, you got a 100% off your capital gain, which is very unique. What the Trump administration did through that Opportunity Zone initiative was incredibly unique. We've never done it in this country before to try to fix what's broken down in the city. It's not about individuals at that point. Cities start to revitalize themselves because free people are taking advantage of the opportunity now in front of them. You see the difference?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Great point. Thank you. Thank you for putting, I mean, I think the way we say things is important, and you're absolutely right. The way I said that wasn't necessarily the right way, because it's that same mindset. They
can help themselves.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
People can help themselves.
That's right.
My mom used to say, she worked in a factory and she was very proud of it. And she used to say, I work hard so that my children and everybody in my home has an opportunity. We all have that opportunity. She loved her work. That's right. She didn't want a handout from anybody. Nope. She never took a handout from anybody. And I would say, Mom, why don't you do that? Why don't you take that money? She would say, you know what? Because I will owe them everything. Right. I can do this on my own.
That's right. She loses her dignity.
Exactly.
In fact, that's why even in the private sector, all these feeding programs, put them a nickel on the table. Exchange is important. There's magic in it. And to give away, they have to put their head down. And when the 6-year-old says, I don't want to eat it, they have nothing to say. But when your mama, and you were 6 years old, said, you're going to eat that because I bought that, there's a difference. You've got to have an exchange. The power is in exchange and commerce. So you're absolutely right. We have had a bad model of how we deal with poverty for the last since the 60s, and it has bankrupt our country, and it has stolen dignity from those that get these so-called handouts or all this free stuff. No, when you don't have that anymore, you figure it out. I came into the profession, if you will, into the public square after working on federal welfare reform. I had lived life. I brought my personal story, and Newt Gingrich was attempting to make those changes when he was Speaker of the House. And we were able to get that bill signed by Bill Clinton, mostly because it was so necessary. It was such a cancer in our society that no one wanted the way that we were doing that model anymore. We had time limits. We had work requirements. Well, the status quo, the pagan, progressives, of course, they didn't want work requirements. You got to be kidding. How are you going to make these people work constantly? But the people themselves, I met one woman. She said, when you guys were doing that stuff, I hated your guts. But when I put on that little uniform, McDonald's probably, then and saw the way my kid looked at me, I just was like, it was magical. That he now saw his mom get up and go to work. There's dignity in work. And we steal from them that dignity when we think that people don't have something that they can contribute to society. So we want to continue that. And so you're asking about the next administration. Well, the last time President Trump was in town, he had a good team of people that were working on ideas of freedom, putting them in every single department, because what the left has done in all of the agencies and departments that are here in Washington, especially those that handle our anti-poverty initiatives, is they built it in a philosophy that some people just cannot live free, that they cannot help themselves. And in that philosophy, it's all built on handout. And he had hired people that were looking at it very differently. And we were starting to move the needle. And we did move the needle. We had low unemployment rates. We had high entrepreneurial rates. And then it all got interrupted, not just with the pandemic, but then the loss of the last election, to where now we're in a horrible crisis as a society. So I think that people are...
Well, but Biden's running on supposedly saving democracy and abortion. I mean, that's his big thing. I'm going to save democracy and abortion. And I think it's so insane that people actually buy into that. How do you think Black Americans and others are reading into Joe Biden as this alleged savior of democracy? I mean, do you think like we've got more work to do on the right as far as like
define what do you mean by democracy? One size fits all, big government will tell you what to do all your lives. But people, as you're pointing out, and as you saw the other day, they're not buying it anymore. Now it's just a matter of duplicating those numbers. Now it's just a matter of everybody telling another, why don't you want to live free? Because we see the differences now in the administrations and their policies. It's not just about the personalities. This is about policies that people have brought to the table, and that's what they're seeing. When you reduce taxes, your life flourishes. When you increase taxes, your life falls apart. It's just that simple.
Right. And when you have more money in your pocket, you can do more with your family. Are you concerned about the endless flood of illegal immigration at the southern border? How about the $1 trillion being added to the national debt every 100 days? It's no wonder thousands of hardworking, patriotic Americans, including myself, are learning how to protect and diversify their retirement savings with precious metals. That's why I've partnered with the top-rated company, Goldco. Listen to this current offer. You can get a free 2024 wealth protection kit and learn how to possibly get $10,000 in bonus silver as a listener of this show while supplies last. Folks, I talk about diversification all the time. It's important you put your money in different areas just to protect yourself and your family. Protect your family's financial future and freedom. Get started today at Sara, S-A-R-A, likesgold.com or call 855-823-GOLD. Get your free gold kit from Goldco and learn how to get $10,000 in bonus silver. Sara likes gold, S-A-R-A likesgold.com or 855-823-4653. That's SaraLikesGold.com or call 855-823-GOLD. You know, and I've had so many different people. I've been so blessed to be able to just travel this country and talk to people one-on-one, just really hear what they have to say. Mm-hmm. And what they really want is what you're saying, Star. They want to be free. They want to be free to make decisions for themselves and for their families. They want the government to stay out of their business and stop trying to indoctrinate their children. What do you think? What is the advice? I mean, we've got a short time between now and November. What can Americans do to really educate themselves, be ready for the November election, really open themselves up to the possibilities that, like, hey, just because you're a registered Democrat or, you know, doesn't mean you have to vote for Biden. You can take a stand and you could do something different. You could vote for the person that you think is going to benefit you and your family the most. Right. And I believe that's President Trump.
Well, I think that what we have to do with those that are going to be going into the voting booth in November, and prior to November, some of the primaries are still occurring, is we need to find that one issue that's important to them. I really am convinced that people really are one issue voters. They're not looking at packages. And that's one of the reasons that the left has so been able to define Republicans as racist, rich, all these big terms that we ourselves have not captured just that one thing that concerns that American. One of the reasons that Trump is up in the polls and so are most of the red team is because of the border. One issue. It concerns many, many Americans, but it doesn't concern all Americans. Some really are concerned about abortion. And when they say people are voting abortion, that doesn't mean they're voting for the left, because that's my one issue. I'm voting against abortion. You find what's important. Families, you just mentioned, their children are important to them. They know that they do not want them indoctrinated, and they need to understand that the Department of Education is against their values. So you find it's mostly going to be, since they're outnumbering us financially, having one-on-one conversations with people about what they need in their life. Because if they know that they need XYZ, and we know they need XYZ, then we're able to define the differences in the two political philosophies. Then it takes the personalities out of it, because you're going to hear, oh my God, but Trump this, Trump that. And the left plans to run on that, to scare people from going in there and pulling that lever. But if they know that my safety depends on this, then they're going to pull that lever for the red team.
Do we need more grassroots? Do we need to get out there and get the message?
And
everything. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not about, you can get caught up in thinking, well, my goodness, they got more money than us, and every other ad is going to be, telling us what the bad decision we're making. This is the point I was trying to make about, trying to sell into the Black community. What have the Dems done for you lately? You're bad. They're bad. You're talking about their grandma. So we don't want to go there with them. What we want to do is look at the issue that's important to them today. And in urban communities, safe streets is very, very important.
Huge.
So that means that we can sell just on that one issue and stay there, because it's very clear which party wants safe streets, especially now with the Dems, the ones out are ruining every street, and they're running every street. And we know that they're going to riot this summer as well. So you want to counter the ads in their mind by getting into their heart. Who is it that said a long time ago that who are you going to believe? What I'm telling you, or your own eyes? And that's where we are. And that's the only way that we're going to be able to combat how much money that they're outraising us, because they're going to be lying constantly. But if in somebody's heart, they know that the one issue that's important to me, the guy from the red team is going to do that for me, then I have no problem thinking that they're going to go into the privacy of that voting booth and pull the lever for the red team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I see that happening across the country. And it is exciting. You brought up it's exciting. And you brought up a very good point. I think crime and education and border, those are all very important issues to different Americans. Yeah. And I've seen it when I was in Oakland, when I was in Chicago, and talking to families, crime-riddled streets. The families don't want that anymore. They're done. They are done. They want their communities back. They want to be able to go to a store. They want to be able to walk to the park with their kids and be safe. Yeah. Thank you so much, Star, for being a part of this show. Where can my listeners keep up with all your work and everything that CURE is doing?
Thank you. Oh, they can go to curepolicy.org for sure. curepolicy.org.
Thank you so much, Star, for coming on the show. I look forward to having you back on. Please make sure you're subscribed to the Sara Carter Show, folks, on your favorite podcast app. It helps us bring all these fantastic guests, and it really gives us a boost in our algorithm. That's what's so important about it. And if you're watching on Rumble or YouTube, go ahead and give us a like and a follow there as well. Thank you so much for being a part of my show. Follow me on Truth at Sara Carter Official, on X at Sara Carter DC, and on Instagram at SCarterDC. God bless you. God bless our nation. God bless you, Star. And we've got a lot of work ahead of us. And God bless the great state of Texas.